Welcome everybody to our Good Shepherd Montessori School Farm Program Alumni panel. I am your moderator for the day. My name is Gwynneth Hurley. This panel is part of a larger conference series that focuses on making farm and school partnerships happen. And so far we've heard from small farmers, teachers, conservation resource specialists, all about how to start a program or, improve and maintain a program you already have going on or want to have going on. And right now we're going to hear from some farm program alumni, which I'm really excited about because I think the lived experience of students who, participate in some sort of farm education is really, what we're most curious about and how that affects them. And what makes it worthwhile in the end. And everyone on the panel today attended Good Shepherd Montessori School in South Bend, Indiana. And since Good Shepherd Montessori opened in 2002, they have had a partnership with a local farmer, Theri Niemier. And for the first, let's say, 18 years or so, this involved students going out to visit Theri's farm about 15-20 minutes away from the school. In the past few years, they've actually moved the farm operation here to the school grounds. And this was sort of a natural partnership with Good Shepherd, given one of the Montessori values of earth stewardship is an important part of Montessori education. So to get started, I'm going to ask each of you to say your name, your current age, and what grades you were in when you were part of a farm program. So let's start down at this end.
Sure. My name is Leena Mariani. I'm 22. I was part of Good Shepherd and Bertrand's farm program and Prairie Wind's farm program through Good Shepherd. Bertrand specifically from 4th through 6th grade. And we were going out to the farm once a week at that time. And I also did her summer camps in the summer.
All right, awesome. My name is Julia McKenna. I'm also 22 years old, and I was part of a farm program through school from 2nd through 8th grade in some capacity. First starting at Prairie Winds Farm in 2nd and 3rd grade, and then Bertrand Farm 4th through 6th, and then was a counselor several summers at Prairie Winds Nature Farm. So I've been involved in farming in some capacity for about 7 years.
I'm Mary Maher. I've been a part of a farm program from 4th grade and 5th grade at Bertrand Farm, and then switched over to a different farm in 6th grade, but then in junior high started and did a farm program here at campus. I'm 16 years old now, and yeah.
My name is Isaiah. I'm 16 years old, and I've been part of the farm program since the 1st grade, and it switched in 4th grade to Miss Terry's farm, and I've been a part of Miss Terry's farm since 8th grade.
Okay, great. Let's go back in time a bit. When you guys were in this program, how do you remember feeling towards your farm class or your weekly farm visit?
Farm was always like the best part of the week, especially in upper L or 4th and 5th year. That was always everyone was always excited for farm day. And I think it was just, I transferred to Good Shepherd from a conventional school, so having the opportunity to experience so much nature and outdoor time was just like mind-boggling. I'd never experienced that before. So it was just so awesome to be able to really come together as a community in our times, working on the farm. And then we always had time, we played games, ran around, and it just was a great community and always really fun.
Yeah, I always remember being super excited, especially I remember in Upper L, once the raspberries started to get closer and other edible foods to being eaten, we started to pay attention to things like that, and we would get super excited. But I loved the work too. It was always just a great part of the week.
Yeah, I would echo that. It was always super exciting to get to go to the farm, and I was a big animal lover, so I was especially a fan of getting to see animals. There were always kittens at Bertrand Farm, which I think was not necessarily a farmed animal, but was always so exciting. We would get there and immediately get to hold a kitten. Got the chance over the years to try and raise geese and help with pigs and all of that. So I think that was really exciting for me as an animal-loving kid. I just always got to do that once a week, which was fun.
I really enjoy being able to have like a break in my week where I could be outside for like 3 hours. That was really important for me because being outside with my friends was like really enjoyable, and I enjoyed that a lot.
So that kind of leads into my next question. Some of your favorite things to do on the farm, things in particular you looked forward to?
I know personally, I started off, I was also a big animal lover, especially as a younger kid. But then eventually, especially in junior high, I got a lot more into like the planting aspect of everything. And I think my all-time favorite thing we did at in junior high farm class was we had a permaculture guild that we broke into small groups, and we planned it and we planted everything, and we got a chance to present to visitors. And it was just, you felt so proud after you did that. It was like a great accomplished feeling, especially you were able to do it with friends. And I think it just kind of, it was cool to look at it and say, like, I did this, like, by myself. Of course, we had Miss Terry's help because we couldn't do it without her, but it was a really cool moment of being able to tell people about the work you were doing, and it was just really fun and really interesting.
I think one of my favorite things was being able to bring home food that we had helped grow and helped take with us. So I always felt like I got to go home with like a little treasure, even if it was like the tiniest zucchini imaginable. And so getting to bring that home and show my family and get to say like I grew this and I picked this, even though that was only partially true, that was really fun. It got to inspire me to cook a lot more recipes and involve vegetables a lot more in our family. So I always felt super grown up and proud when I could come home and be like, I made you this tomato. So that was really fun.
I think standout memories for me involved cooking, and one that I really loved was making maple syrup, tapping the trees and seeing how it goes from point A to point B, or harvesting. And especially when you're harvesting, all your friends are around, you're talking, you're having fun, you're not even thinking about the work, and then taking that to cook something the same day was always just super fun.
For me, one of my favorite memories was probably when, at the beginning of the week in 4th grade at Miss Terry's farm, we got to spend the night in tents all together, and I had a really fun time like bonding with my new classmates at the farm, which was important to me.
Awesome. So do you think that your farm exposure has influenced or carried over into other areas of your life at all?
Yeah, I can start with that. I think it had a big impact, especially in my interest in sustainability beyond necessarily just the scope of farming, just in general. So in high school, I was really involved in climate change related work and working with the city of South Bend to try and accomplish a climate change resolution, which was really fun, and that kind of came to fruition my senior year of high school. So I think I took a lot of my passion for the environment, passion for caring for Earth, and for playing a role in it into high school. And then even through college, that's continued. I'll be starting a master's program in like 3 weeks, which is fun, about sustainable urban development. So very excited to kind of tie it all together and bring back my love of nature, my love of farming, and get to employ that into a career. I think that's really special, and for me has allowed me to like find my place and my passion of what I'm interested in doing. And I think the farm has so much to do with that.
Definitely. I would sort of echo that. After finishing up with the farm programs through Good Shepherd, I continued to be a farm camp counselor in the summers to some capacity. And then in undergrad, I studied botany, and I just finished my undergrad. So I'm definitely taking, all of the inspiration into the next phase of my life for sure.
Yeah, I definitely, I also, whenever I can, come back. I'm a camp counselor for the summer camp, and and now I've kind of like the dream's closer to me to be a botanist when I get older, and it's just things like that like I never really thought of before being a part of this farm program that just excite me so much now. And I especially love like the farm camps that I help counsel, of seeing these little kids like experience all this and how excited they get. So being able to share this experience with so many other people has been really amazing.
Do any of you want to speak to maybe food choices specifically, or consumer choices more broadly?
I think it's like even little things like going to the grocery store now, and being able to like point out to my mom, like, oh, like, you shouldn't get these eggs because this, you know, like, little things like that. Now being able to kind of, like, be more aware of what I'm getting and know where it's coming from, and know what to look for in these kinds of things, it makes it more exciting, and just overall, just being aware of those kinds of things it's been a big game changer, I think.
I'd say I'm also very interested in thrifting and upcycling different things. So while it's not, again, directly farming related, it all relates to our sustainable use of resources. And so I'm a big fan of thrifting for clothing, for items. I'm a part of a local Buy Nothing community, which is really special. So get to go online and help keep things out of the landfill, trade and receive things, and build a sense of community around it. I think thrifting is fun because you get to find cool things, but then you also get to share with people in your community how you're using something, how you're reusing it, and hopefully inspire them to make similar choices. So you don't have to buy everything from Target. You can also try and find things more locally and more sustainably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just sort of echo all that and say I feel pretty aware of my resource use, and you know, as you're moving through different consumer stages of your life, when you get the freedom to start buying your own things, it's nice to know that you have some knowledge of how you can be, you know, spending basically moving into the world as an adult, you know, responsibly.
So this question is a bit more academically centered, but do any of you remember times when farm-related knowledge or subjects kind of showed up in another academic subject, or maybe, you know, a later class that you took in college? Just some cross-curricular knowledge going on at all?
I'll jump at a lot of years in the future because I'm getting old. But this past year I completed a senior thesis in the sociology department, but I was able to focus my thesis on sort of the mental and psychological impacts of climate change on populations. And so a lot of my research was looking at what relationship do people have with land, and how does the changing environment change your sense of self and your culture and maybe traditions that you have, especially thinking about maybe Pacific Island communities where their way of life is very, very directly threatened by climate change. And so bringing in this understanding of how I've grown up with a love for the land and my attachment and kind of sense of peace coming from farming, coming from gardening, thinking about how do we translate that into broader research questions about, yeah, climate change is going to physically change our communities, but what does it look like emotionally and mentally for us as we kind of enter into this new relationship with Earth? So that was a really fun connection for me to get to explore in school and bring in lots of different subjects and people. And so I think in a very direct way influenced kind of the path that I took there.
And I'm just thinking, like, at Good Shepherd itself, every single subject's connected, and so it was really a great chance. You kind of were learning everything at once during a subject. Of you'd be in science class, but you'd still be talking, obviously, about plants and about that stuff, and you could then, like, you got a better understanding of that because you had hands-on experience with planting and growing and gardening and all that stuff. So it was just really cool to make those connections and kind of have those, like, aha moments of, oh wait, like, I know this, and like it's connected to this by that. So just things like that kind of, for me personally, it made everything a lot easier to learn because I kind of could make those connections throughout all the classes.
For me, I found that for 8th grade, the class that I had for farm was very similar to the biology I had for freshman year. So like there are a lot of connections with like the animals and like the genes being passed down and like different traits that an animal can have. I found that really interesting.
I might also add that at Purdue, where I did my botany undergrad, a lot of it is focused on conventional agriculture, even in some of the botany classes. So it was great to have a different perspective where maybe I could challenge my professors with tougher questions because I'm aware of, you know, sort of how those systems interact.
Great, and that actually leads into our next question, specifically about the climate change, context that we're living in right now. I want to ask how your current understanding of, the connection between agricultural practices and environmental health, I guess how that understanding has been influenced by your experience in your farm programs.
Well, I could just kick it off since I was kind of already on that track. I think that we were always aware of sort of multiple types of systems. We, had hands-on, locally grown, smaller systems that were very community-based, and then we learned about conventional farming systems. Also, we all live in Indiana, so we're driving by cornfields, soybean fields all the time. So we always had that perspective, and then it was supplemented by everything we were learning about resource use and what makes a healthy ecological system. I think we all got a really good sense of what is environmentally sustainable, what is not a sustainable system, and sort of the impacts of agriculture on the world.
I can also kind of extend that. The internship that I'm doing this summer is focused on the sort of global relationship between climate change and agriculture. And when I was interviewing for that job, they were asking me, what does sustainable agriculture mean to you? And I was like, well, I have a great answer for this. I had this very hands-on example to be able to explain, well, this is what sustainable agriculture looks like. And so having that background knowledge going into an internship where I'm looking at what does sustainable palm oil farming look like and what does sustainable rubber farming look like, which is completely different than the type of farming that I grew up with. But at the heart of the system of sustainable agriculture, of caring for the land, of reuse and sort of regeneration of land, of not excessively using water, not using pesticides, like that's all baseline information that you can take with you when thinking in other contexts. So that's been really cool to kind of explore what does sustainable agriculture mean on a global scale, and how does that look when you're working in communities with very different resources than we might have at a smaller level here.
I think one of the things for me is just kind of coming into Good Shepherd. I always in the farm program kind of thought, I kind of know what climate change is, reduce your carbon footprint of don't drive like a car so much, right? And I kind of was set of that's what it was, but being able to learn how many other things affect and are a part of climate change, of how the soil is such a big part of it, and taking care of our soil is one of the most important things we can do, and just never having thought of that before, being able to have a hands-on experience and realize how important everything is really, and how in harmony we have to be with nature to make everything work. I think that it was just a really cool way that I kind of was able to expand my perspective on that.
So this is going to be maybe a little bit of a difficult question. If you had to kind of hone in on, let's say, your one biggest takeaway from this experience of having farm education in your school years.
Well, I feel like a takeaway that might not be the biggest, but that we probably all have experienced, is just how ingrained it becomes in your day-to-day life without you really actively thinking about it because you've had so much practice. But right now in my life, I'm feeling really inspired because of the resources and knowing that people in my community care about stuff like this as I'm taking, my botany background into the future, feeling like there's a community to connect with who, I have an established relationship with, is really amazing.
I think one of the biggest takeaways is that it can be kind of daunting talking about sustainability and all these things that we as a society are doing wrong, and it can be sort of overwhelming to be I have to get rid of everything in my life now, I have to restart. But being able to learn of no, the little things that you change can make a huge difference, and even if you aren't in a situation or a position where you can start change and start buying only local food or whatever, stuff like that, just even being aware of the things that you're doing that impact the environment and spreading the word and just telling people about this, so being able to rationalize and put into, okay, I don't have to do this massive thing to make a difference. Just little things that I do really do make a huge difference.
Yeah, for me, one of my biggest takeaways is probably having living a garden, and you're able to have food from the garden versus getting it from like a store and the food's coming from like California or something like that, versus having your own local garden.
One of my biggest takeaways, I think, is also the sort of domino effect of having a sort of farming system like this. You're not just impacting the students who are involved on the farm or the counselors who are helping work, but you're also helping impact their families, their friends, their relationships. I just remember my family really didn't eat vegetables for a long time when I was little. My parents didn't really know how to cook vegetables well. They didn't really like them. So we just never ate vegetables, which is remarkable now, because now if you come to my house for dinner, it's 50% vegetables. We'll cook like 3 different kinds. My dad loves trying new recipes. But it was really an interesting way of kicking off like my parents' health journey too. Me coming home with vegetables from the farm and being really excited to cook them. And I was a super picky eater, so they were like, "You want to try Brussels sprouts? Let's try Brussels sprouts." And so me kind of encouraging my parents in that way has been a really big health shift in our family, but also sort of focus shift. Like now they know to shop organic, they know to shop local. So it wasn't just impacting me being on the farm, but I was able to take that home, and now, 20 years later, we have a totally different relationship to food in my family and a totally different just journey in general. My dad's been on a really big health journey and it has really transformed his life, and so I'll say that has a lot to do with Good Shepherd and the way that our farming program kind of encouraged families to be involved on the farm and encouraged students to bring home fruits and veggies and recipes to their family and convince my parents they do like vegetables.
All right, so for our final question, based on everything you guys have said, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that you would recommend schools starting their own farm to school program or incorporating the farm in some way. Do you have any recommendations or ideas about specific components you think that they should include, just based on what you really liked and connected with?
For me, I think that schools, I think it'd be nice. It's like at my school where I go now, there's like a lot of green open grass. I think it'd be nice if they like put in gardens and things of that nature, like more trees, gardens, and that way it's like a happier place for them to be able to be. Like Good Shepherd is, gardens all over.
I think kind of adding on to that, I think kind of creating like an independent factor. I think one of my favorite things about being a part of this farm program was like the accomplished feeling you had of like, I worked hard and put blood, sweat, and tears into growing this plant, and I actually get to see the fruits of my labor, quite literally. And so I think like giving that chance to that opportunity to other students of letting them take control a little bit and teaching them, and then kind of setting them off on their own to create this thing. I think it just everyone then I think gets a bit more excited about it and wants to partake in it a bit more. And so I think that's my recommendation. I think that people should add.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think kind of bouncing off that idea, children in particular really love to care for things, and they really love to cultivate and to have ownership over things. So even if you're not able to fully transform school curriculum, I understand there's a lot of limits to what teachers can do. But, would you be able to grow a couple tomatoes in your classroom, or would you be able to bring in 3 different vegetables from the grocery store and you all try them together and learn about them? Or could you take a field trip to a farm once a year? There's lots of smaller scale ways that you can incorporate farming into your school day-to-day activities, even if it isn't at the scale that this is. You could easily grow some spinach in your classroom and then you make a little salad. Or could you have a classroom pet, and could you learn about animals through that pet? There's a lot of more accessible ways that I think schools could start to approach that wouldn't feel as daunting as like starting an entire farm necessarily on their campus.
I would say I think your own excitement is contagious. So maybe if you don't, as a teacher or administrator, if you don't have too much background in a farming system or a garden, maybe try to inspire yourself, start a garden at home, and see where that takes you, because your personal love of something will definitely inspire your students and your school community.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to do this. I feel like I learned a lot. I feel even inspired by your answers, so I'm I'm thinking that the audience has learned as well. So thank you guys.
Thank you.